Hey everybody, Dr. Charlton here. Today I want to just talk to you about creating a slide deck that is interpretable without a presenter. Now, the reason you would do that is because a lot of times the decision maker is not present when your idea is being pitched. You may have to pitch your concepts, your ideas to some lower level facilitator that can kind of, or, the person who needs the solution you're offering, but actually the decision maker higher up doesn't talk to you directly. So then we need to create slides in a format where when that decision maker gets it in their hand, they can immediately understand it without needing you there to explain it. Okay, so then it's more of a report format. So that's basically what we have here. So I'm going to go through, I have an example of a slide deck here that I'm going to go through, and I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of some of their approaches. First thing I want you to notice is they do the typical consulting group heading and subheading kind of format. So there's always a header that is like short, sometimes it's cute, and it's can be gimmicky, but then the subheader, which follows it, is much more descriptive, and it explains exactly what's going on in a really dry kind of detailed way. Okay, so the header and subheader, I want you to notice that is a recurring theme. So on this slide, there are a lot of words here, so I'm not suggesting this is like the best slide ever, but again, you can see from the title, we kind of know what we're supposed to learn from this. So summary: significant reordering of national manufacturing competitiveness has occurred over the past decade. So this is a summary of what you're going to read in this whole report. It's an executive summary. That's why there's so many words, because it's really summarizing the whole slide deck. This is really nice to have for people who just want to get the highlights really quick before they dive into it. Okay, so here we don't have a header and subheader. We only have one header, but which is fine. That works too. But I want you to know that whenever there's some kind of chart, like here you have a map and some countries are green and some are grayed out. We don't really know what that means, but we should be able to learn not only what it means, but also what we should take away from it by looking at the title. So let's find out. BCG's Global Manufacturing Cost Competitiveness Index covers countries with more than 90% of total exports of manufactured goods. So the green countries then are the countries that it covers, and we know why. It's because they're countries with more than 90% of total exports of manufactured goods. Okay, so let's see. We're going to go ahead and go to the next slide. The index, so again, we have a chart, a whole bunch of data. Now, we don't want to leave it up to the individual reading it to interpret the chart. We want to say in the title not only what it means, but what they should get out of it, what they should take away. The index covers 4 direct drivers of MFG manufacturing competitiveness: wages, productivity growth, energy costs, and exchange rates. Okay, so so now we know, based on this title, kind of what we should see in this chart, this is really just descriptive data. It's just showing you this is what, this is like explaining what their research covers, and then it has like summary, averages and stuff for these different classes of data. Over the past 10 years, there have been dramatic shifts in the relative cost competitiveness of the top 25 export economies. So again, we don't have to look at the chart to know we already know from the title of the chart what we're supposed to get out of it. So I just want you to note, we're talking about dramatic shifts in relative cost competitiveness. So you're expecting some to go way up and some to go way down. And right here, you can see that most of them are declining. So that's what they're showing, is declining trend. So the relative cost competitiveness of the top 25 export economies seems to be going down. So you could have said that instead of saying it's a dramatic shift, although in Mexico and US, we haven't gone down. But I guess, this is kind of neutral. So you could say that you could make it more active, and we could even learn more from it if you said, the majority of countries are showing a declining trend. You could have said that in the title instead of just saying there's dramatic shifts. Now you could go the other way and make it more neutral, which is not what we want at all. We want to know from the title what we should get out of this data. Okay, so you could go the other way, the bad example I'm going to give, which is, you could say, just take off the whole first line and you could just say, this is the relative cost competitiveness of the top 25 export economies. So now you haven't said that there's dramatic shifts. And so I don't really know what the point of the chart is at all until I really look at it and decide for myself. Okay, so you don't want people to have to really look at your chart closely. You want to tell them what they should take away from it right in the title. Okay, let's see what's next. 4 country categories emerge from these dramatic shifts. So these are all your categories that you put these groups into. This makes a lot of sense. This is a nice clean table. Okay, so dramatic shifts have led to a widespread in cost competitiveness across the top 25 export economies. So this is our takeaway. So because of this, these dramatic shifts, there's a huge difference in cost competitiveness or widespread in the top 25 export economies. So, imagine if this title wasn't very clear and if you had to look through this data to try to discern, like maybe you only had this secondary data here. This secondary title, Manufacturing Cost Index 2014, US equals 100. That's what I usually see, is just like people put a title like that, and then we're supposed to decide for ourselves what we should take out of it. Now, but I want you to know that in the title, they tell you you're supposed to see the widespread in cost competitiveness. And then, so like big differences. And then also, I want you to know in the footnotes, we learn where the data comes from and any additional notes that we need to interpret it. And it is ordered in size of exports, highest to lowest, but you can see the manufacturing cost index is not linearly related to this. So it doesn't start up here with China and then go straight down to Czech Republic. It's wavy. All right. Now this is kind of a really generic title. So the data, it's really clean and orderly, so we can kind of get an idea of what we take out of it. But just by looking at the title, there's no takeaway. So I could make this better if I said, for example, I could just say 4 out of the top 10 export economies are trending upward. I could say that China has been the number 1 since whatever date. There's lots of things you could say about this data. So just seeing the table without an explanation, that's kind of actually what we want to avoid. So this is not the best example, but it still kind of works because this table is nice and clean and tidy. So I can just kind of look at it and decide what I want to take out of it. I guess that's the idea. Several of the remaining top 25 exporters have very attractive direct cost profiles, but are challenged by secondary factors. So let's see, what are the secondary factors? Let's see, direct cost profiles are attractive. So the manufacturing cost relative to the US is what it's saying. That's attractive because you can manufacture stuff there cheaper. The overall business environment seems okay, but then when you look at ease of doing, so the stuff that we should pay attention to is highlighted. Ease of doing business is not very good. Logistics performance is not very good, and corruption perception is also not very good. So these are the challenges. So we know from the title that we should be looking for the challenges, and we see it, it's highlighted. So just summary, just sort of meta information about the study, who did the study, some citations. So this is just a quick example of a study where you can interpret these slides without a presenter. It's like a report, right? So that's what you want to do. You want to make a report. You don't want you don't want to give the client slides where after the presentation they forget or they hand it off to somebody and then all of a sudden they don't know what you're talking about. So my suggestion is to look through a lot of slides from BCG, McKinsey, other consulting committee companies that are posted on the web, and kind of see how they do things and kind of follow some of their ideas, and that will make it, the best. And then each slide, as you craft the slide, think, what do I want my client to learn from this slide? Okay, it's not going to be evident. It's not going to be self-evident just from the data itself. You need to put in the title. You need to really spell it out for them what they should learn from this slide. So, like, for example, a poor title would say um, these are 10 social media that you need to get that nonprofits are involved in, and it's just like a list. A better title, or more informative would say like these are the top 10 most popular social media channels for nonprofits and similar companies, and you know say something about which ones are growing and which ones are going down. It's like you really need to spell it out for people and give them some useful data. You don't want to leave people scratching their head like, what did I learn from this slide? So make sure the takeaway is in the title or the subtitle. Use titles and subtitles, and you can make them longer if you need to, just to really get some kind of point across. The footnotes are critical. That's where you talk about where your data came from and any kind of details about the data. And then let's see, then the body of it, unless it's a special circumstance, like maybe it's an executive summary slide, the middle of it should have very little text. Okay. So if you find that you're stuffing a slide full of text because you have so much to say, think about if you could say some of those things with a picture. Okay. Could you use a picture to show what you mean? Or some kind of a chart, like a flow chart, could maybe show your ideas. So think about it like that and try to get rid of, you don't want a whole bunch of words stuffed onto a slide, okay? You can have long titles and subtitles, but the body of the slide should be cleaner. All right, so hopefully that makes sense. That's my effort to kind of show you a slide deck. I think I'm going to do one more really quick. So let's see what else looks good. I'm going to do sustainability's next frontier. Okay, so we'll see how this goes. I haven't looked at this one yet. So this was a webinar. It does have a title and subtitle. It just looks different because there's the colon. But sustainability's next frontier. Again, that's a cutesy title. It doesn't tell you a lot, but it gives you an inkling. But then the subtitle says walking the talk on the sustainability issues that matter most. So it gives you a little bit more of an idea what to expect, or at least it should. They may not always achieve that, but that's the idea. So we have our presenters. So, I'm going to skip some of this upfront information and kind of go to the main slides. So again, this is a webinar, so they may not fully hold true 100% to their report format because they actually are presenting this in person, but they still, it's BCG, they're still following it a lot. Okay, so first of all, although large majority of companies rate sustainability as necessary to be competitive today or in the future, so it's not even a complete thought. So you have to go to the next slide to finish the thought. So that's like suboptimal, but I could see why they're doing that. The other issues, they use the pie chart, which in the data analytics world, pie charts are shunned. We much prefer bar charts and line charts. And the reason is because, and we'll go into this more later, but the reason is because it's really hard to compare these different pieces of the pie size wise. In this case, it's not too bad, but a lot of times it can be difficult to eyeball. So this second slide finishes the thought. So most companies still aren't profiting from their sustainability efforts. And let's see. So all these ones over here are kind of broken. So the title tells you what you should learn. And then when you look at the data, yeah, these three sections, these people are not profiting from their sustainability efforts. You're breaking even, you're losing money, you don't know. Very few added to their profit. All right, so that's pretty clear. So here's the reason they're not able to convert their efforts into value. The question is, here's the survey question: has your company developed a clear business case for sustainability? And so you say up front here, what's the takeaway from this chart? They're not able to convert their efforts into value. And then there's only a few, the people who've said yes to this are about a third. So 2/3 haven't been able to do that. So now you can see where the failure is coming in. And some of the reasons why now: more tangible sustainability issues perceived as more significant. So what I want you to notice in this, and this is going to be my last slide because I'm getting kind of redundant here, but the argument before you look at the data. Don't make people look at the data. So like I could have a generic title, right? It could say, instead of saying more tangible sustainability issues perceived as more significant, you could say, this is how employees rate different sustainability issues. So then I don't really know what you're trying to argue on the slide. So I'm kind of stuck having to look through and read all this data. But instead, we make an argument that these are the things that are distracting us from focusing on value and adding value through sustainability initiatives. So anyway, hopefully that makes sense. I just want you to get that you are not going to assume that you won't be there to pitch this, okay? So you will be there to pitch this, but assume that the client is going to take these slides away and going to forget about your presentation and then still needs to be able to read and understand these slides. So you're going to get away from using neutral language in the title. You're going to use the title to argue your point of each slide. So so they should use language like it's going up, something is going up, it's increasing, it's growing, it's declining. Those are really good terms, because then you know exactly what to look for when you do look down at the data. So that's all I have for now. But like I said, I encourage you all to read the Working with Real World Clients guide, and also to just do a Google search for slides from BCG, McKinsey, whatever other consulting companies that you know of or can think of. And, just do your best to make it so that a presenter is not necessary. And that's all I have for today. Thanks everybody for watching.